Joining us on the program tonight, very pleased to have with us the Attorney General from the Commonwealth of Virginia and gubernatorial candidate, Bob McDonnell. General McDonnell, thank you, sir, for your time tonight.
Well, Cam, great to be on with you, and always nice to talk to people that understand the Constitution.
Well, it's likewise. And yesterday, the NRA's Political Victory Fund announced that it was going to give its endorsement to you in Virginia's governor's race this year. What exactly does this endorsement mean for you, General McDonnell?
Well, we were delighted to be able to receive the endorsement of the National Rifle Association. There's 120,000 members in Virginia. There are countless other tens of thousands that believe deeply in the Bill of Rights, particularly the Second Amendment, that look to the NRA for guidance when it comes to which candidate is supportive of the Second Amendment. I'm particularly delighted in light of the work that we did over this last couple of years during my time as Attorney General to stand up for Second Amendment rights in the Heller case, which was the most important case in Second Amendment history. We sided with several other attorneys general to advocate the idea that the Second Amendment is an individual right to keep and bear arms, not a collective right that solely pertains to a militia. So I am really pleased to have the NRA's endorsement. I think it's going to help us a great deal to win in November, and I know that the NRA is going to be very active in advocating my candidacy around the state.
You know, one of the things I got a chance to speak with Chris Cox about the endorsement not too long ago, NRA's chief lobbyist, and one of the other things that he mentioned was the fact that as Attorney General, you told the mayor of New York City, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, look, quit it with these stunts of you sending private investigators down to our state and trying to mess with our firearms retailers, trying to mess with active law enforcement investigations. When you found out that the mayor of New York was sending private investigators here to the Commonwealth to try to purchase firearms, what was your reaction initially?
Well, we were frankly shocked because there had not been any coordination with our excellent Virginia State Police. Typically in these law enforcement operations, state police between the states work very well together. They cooperate because there's a mutual goal in wanting to stop crime or illegal sales of guns. That's something that's mutually understood. When we found out they were doing it and really targeting law-abiding Virginia gun dealers with setting up these stimulated straw purchases for the purposes of trying to essentially set up a civil lawsuit, we were very unhappy. And frankly, so was our Democrat governor. We can police our laws very well in Virginia. So we got a law passed in Virginia at my request to make that kind of action a crime in Virginia, in fact, a felony in Virginia. And I let the governor signed it. I let the mayor of New York know in writing that this law had passed and that we certainly hope that they would comply with the law so that none of the New York agents would be charged with felonies in Virginia. I thought that was the right thing to do. I called the Attorney General of New York and said, look, let's just work together. I mean, that's the way law enforcement operations ought to work. And so we were delighted that the law passed. And obviously, our friends in New York are following the law, and the police are now working well together.
You know, one of the other things that Chris Cox mentioned when I was talking to him is your attitude when it comes to punishing criminals, those who commit robberies, rapes, murders. And Chris Cox said, Bob McDonnell believes that if somebody uses a gun in the commission of a crime, if somebody commits a violent crime, you throw the book at them. Can you talk a little bit, General McDonnell, about your philosophy when it comes to targeting criminals as opposed to perhaps pushing for gun control laws that typically end up impacting the law-abiding?
Well, certainly. I think our founders had the vision that the liberties that were protected in the Bill of Rights were ones that were very important and that should not be infringed on by government, and that the laws don't favor any kind of prior restraint or blanket restrictions on rights. But when there's violations of the law or people grossly abuse those rights, then there's a time for the law to intervene, and that's what we have done very well in Virginia really over the last decade, with significant new penalties for using a firearm in the commission of a felony. The Project Exile program that created mandatory minimum sentences of 5 years for unlawful uses of a firearm or possession of firearms by convicted felons. I mean, that's the way that I think the law ought to work, and as a result, Virginia is one of the safest states of its kind in the country. And I think a lot of that's because we are very tough on people that violate the law and commit crimes and create new victims in Virginia, especially when they use a firearm. So I'm pleased that that's the success story we can report for Virginia by being tough on criminals.
All right, I want to return briefly, if I can, General, to the Heller case that you mentioned earlier. In the amicus brief that you were involved in, and the number of state attorneys general that took part in this brief, not only did that amicus brief say that the Second Amendment was an individual right, but that strict scrutiny ought to be applied when it comes to gun control laws. Is it your opinion, General McDonnell, that the Second Amendment is a fundamental right of Americans?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. In fact, I think our founders took some of those rights and enshrined them in the Constitution for exactly that reason, that either as a matter of natural law or as a longstanding principle of the Anglo-American legal system, that they deserve to have special recognition in the Bill of Rights. That was the whole discussion between the various factions at the Constitutional Convention, that there were such a concern after the experience with England about a very strong central government, and that the Articles of Confederation that had pre-existed the Constitution for 11 years that didn't adequately protect individual liberties against the potential abuses by a central government. I mean, that was the ideas that the framers had, and that's the whole reason that the Bill of Rights was created. It was a marvelous balance between the duties and obligations of a central government and the clearly protected fundamental rights of individuals that were outlined in the first 8 amendments, and then of course the 9th and 10th were essentially hedges against federal power to reserve power to the states and people respectively. So I don't think there's any question that, and especially now that we've got the language of the Heller case from last year, that it is a fundamental constitutional right of the individual to keep and bear arms that should not be infringed upon. And as you pointed out, the highest level of constitutional scrutiny, which is strict scrutiny, applies when looking at laws that are passed at the state, local, or federal level that infringe upon those individual liberties.
Boy, I got to tell you, General McDonnell, I could talk with you about history and the founding of this nation for hours, but I know that you're a very busy guy. You're on a very tight schedule. I do appreciate you joining us on the program this evening, and I hope that we can do it again.
Well, I thank you very much for that, and I ask all the hunters and sportsmen in Virginia that appreciate the exercise of their Second Amendment rights to support me in this election on November 3rd. I know that the NRA is going to be informing all of their members around the state, and I appreciate having a minute to be on with you today. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. And if I could impose one thing on you, General McDonnell, I know that your daughter served in Iraq, and if the next time you talk to her, would you just tell her thanks from those of us here at NRA News for her service to our country?
Well, you're kind to say that. We're very proud of her and, the other hundreds of thousands of men and women that have served in the cause of freedom in Iraq and Afghanistan and the global war on terror. All of us that enjoy that Bill of Rights owe a lot to these men and women that have fought to preserve our liberties and the idea of democracy throughout the world over the many years. So you're kind to say that. I'll see her soon. I'll pass that on to her.
Thank you very much, sir. Attorney General Bob McDonnell, the Republican gubernatorial candidate in the Commonwealth of Virginia. NRA Political Victory Fund announcing yesterday that they were endorsing Bob McDonnell for governor, and we're pleased that Bob McDonnell could join us on the program tonight.